This is Forever Blue. I'm Ian Cheeseman. This is XS Manchester 106.1 FM. Thanks very much for joining us. This is the home of Manchester City on a Tuesday between 6 and 7. And tonight we've got a slightly different looking show because most of the time I have somebody like Paul Lake or Paul Dickoff sat with me, and they weren't available today, so I was looking desperately around. No, that's not true. I thought what we'd do tonight slightly differently is have a debate among City fans. So I have handpicked, so well, yeah, you will blame me now because I've handpicked them, and I said that, haven't I? I've handpicked 5 City voices, City fans to come and talk about lots of things, but mainly, because we're in the middle of an international break at the moment and there hasn't been a game recently, rather than just focus on the football, which we sometimes do, I'd like to talk a little bit about the off-field relationship between the club and the fans, because on social media, it might be the same for you, a lot of people contact me and talk about whether the club's going in the right direction off the field or rather the wrong direction, whether the relationship's as good as it was, it's better than it was. I'm just going to ask the questions tonight rather than particularly offer an opinion, but I have some people here who I consider to be voices of a certain level of expertise. Let me, without further ado, let them introduce themselves. So I'm starting with the gentleman on my right, and I'd also, just for the purposes of the listeners thinking, well, I want to know what sort of age groups they are, I wanted to include your age in your description. So do you want to start, Kevin?
Yeah, Kevin
reluctantly.
Parker. Yeah, thanks for that. Kevin Parker, General Secretary of the Supporters Clubs. Unbelievably, I'm 57 years of age, Ian. Can you believe that?
Can't believe that.
No, I can't believe it. Somebody said to me, you don't look 57. You did 5 years ago.
And next up?
Yeah, I'm Harlan. I'm 24. I've been a City fan since 1993, since I was brought into the world. So yeah, I'm really passionate. Even City fans say like Gary Neville and sound like Liam Gallagher, so I'll take that. But yeah, I've got a season card. I've been going to City for as long as I can remember, and I adore the club with all my heart. So yeah,
we have a female representative.
I'm Emily Robin. I write for King of the Kipp. I'm on the City Watch podcast as well with Ian fortnightly, and I am 36 next month.
And
Dave Wallace, co-editor of King of the Kipp, which has now been going for 30 years, and I'm 74.
Wow. 74 years young, you're supposed to say, Dave. And
I'm Andy Savage. I'm 47 years of age, and I've been a City fan for about, it feels like 70 years.
And you run a Facebook page, don't you?
Yeah, my Facebook group is MCFC 9320 group. Find that on Facebook.
So there we are. That's established the credentials of people. And what I want to start, first of all, to talk about is King of the Kipp. And the 250th edition of King of the Kipp came out just recently. And I know that, Dave, you've got the 30th anniversary in terms of years of running the whole fanzine coming up later this year. So you're a good point to start with, actually, because you've seen all the changes, you reported through the changes. The fanzine may have even changed, I don't know, but what was the reason? I mean, I've got in my own mind as to why fanzines themselves started and why you started, but from your perspective, why did you start King of the Kipp?
Well, at that time, in 88, football was probably at its lowest ebb. We'd had a lot of hooliganism. We'd had Heysel. We'd had the fan at Birmingham got killed when a wall collapsed on him, and there were no magazines for the up-to-date football fan to be able to contribute to. We had Match and Shoot, which were like kids' magazines. You couldn't go into a doctor's surgery and read anything up-to-date about football and modern. And you were getting programmes like Question Time, where idiots were pontificating about the situation in football, how all the hooligans should have been made to join the army and stuff like that. Most of them were ex-army, as it happened. Not those on Question Time, but most of the hooligans. Yeah. They were either ex-army or scaffolders and that. And, Ken Bates wanted to electrify supporters who tried to get on the pitch with electric fences. Bernard Alford, bless him, wanted to birch them. And the hooligan element was such a minor part of football The main thing about football fans in those days, particularly at City, was the humour. And so Fanzine started up to reflect how the ordinary football fan watched the game and got involved with the game. And that's really how fanzines began in the mid-80s. I think City Gent was the first one for Bradford City, and I think they're still going. And it started off, when we started, there were about 40 fanzines, and that escalated to about 300 at the peak. And we had general fanzines like Off the Ball, When Saturday Comes, which is still going, and they were the yardstick, really, for football fans.
Were they in any way, or was your fanzine in any way a rebellion against the official documentations, like the programme? The club had a magazine at one time, or was it just that you wanted a fan's voice?
We just wanted to give City fans a voice, and luckily enough, my wife was a cartoonist, and I liked to write about City. I'd had all sorts published in the press, and I'd done marquetry plaques that presented to players. I was the Blue Santa, the first Blue Santa for about 20 years. So I'd also sent a lot of stuff to the local radio, Piccadilly Radio it was then, James H. Reeve, Fred, and they were all very well received. So I already had a dossier of stuff that was available for the fanzine, so I just kicked it off from there. I did contribute to another fanzine at first, but decided to do our own, and King of the Kipp came about at that time.
Has the fanzine changed during those 250 editions?
Yeah, it's a lot more professional now, I think. The contributions are brilliant. We've had some great contributions in this last issue. We're unusual for a fanzine that we've probably got more female influence with Emily and Sue and everything than a lot of other fanzines have. So that calms me down a bit when I'm being too vitriolic, I'm told. So, Sue is the co-editor, and she cuts a lot of stuff out that I put in, mainly about you-know-who, because there's lots of material there to go at.
I'm assuming that you're a millionaire, that the two of you have made an absolute fortune out of these 30 years of running the fanzine.
Well, if I'd have been doing a part-time job instead of doing the fanzine, I maybe would have been a millionaire, because the time that goes into it is, we usually start on a Monday now when we get contributions. That goes right through for a fortnight, and it's very powerful stuff. Lots of editing goes into it, and it's a big situation, really, but better now that I'm retired. It was murder when I was working. I'd have to go to meetings in London on a Monday morning when I'd not finished the fanzine, and get back at 10 o'clock at night and carry on till 4 o'clock in the morning to get it out. I don't know how I did it now, but obviously I'm a lot older now, and I was pretty old when I started, so it was tough, but it's always been wonderful doing the fanzine. When it's finished, I want to chuck it down the toilet, then I can't wait to get it back from the printers on a Friday, and it just starts again from there with the outlets and subscribers and everything.
What's been the highlight for? Is there something that's either been in the fanzine or something that's happened as a result of the fanzine where you think, well, I'll never forget that's just the pièce de résistance or something?
There's been a few things that I've regretted, obviously. I think one of the highlights was when I was fan on the board, I managed to persuade Bernard and the chairman at that time to change the game from Saturday against Liverpool to the Good Friday against Liverpool, because the Liverpool team wanted to be present at the Hillsborough Memorial. One of my big disappointments, which is good for real access, is that I tried to get the club to come out to Thunderstruck by AC/DC, and they turned it down. They didn't think it was appropriate. Since then, it's been played at every major stadium in the world. Even when we went to Juventus, they played it there. And instead of fans singing Thunder, we could have been singing City. We could have been the first to do it. So that, daft though it sounds, that was one of my big disappointments. But I think we've been able to give fans a voice and get in touch with the club by doing that. And I think we've kept City's name going through the bad times, as did the supporters clubs, and Oasis have helped as well, because the bad times were really grim. I'm sure some of the others, and Kevin will go along with that. And somehow the spirit of City fans, the fanzines, not just KK, but other fanzines as well, and the supporters clubs like Prestwich and Whitefield, and that's just kept the club going. As I say, Oasis, with the credibility, helped City fans keep going, knowing that, you know, guys like that supported the Blues, and it was pretty credible.
Emily, you're a regular contributor. You write a column in the fanzine. What does it mean to you, and what is your experience of Dave and his wife Sue, who basically are king of the Kippax?
They're the heart and soul for me. Well, he's rubbing at that. It just for me. I started writing for them in high school, and the confidence it gave me. I just sent a couple of articles in on the off chance. I was 15 years old, and I couldn't believe that Dave and Sue published my work. I was like, wow. And for somebody looking for a career at that point, it was so inspiring. It means the world to me, and to be writing for them now as well in a very different time in City's history. Sometimes I can't believe the words that I'm writing down, as we all agree in the room, the football that we're getting to watch at the moment, we just never could have dreamt it at our football club. But actually writing those words and then seeing them published in the most amazing fanzine, it means a lot to me.
And you have the freedom, presumably, to write whatever you want.
Yeah, and I don't believe that people read it. I write like nobody reads it, and maybe that's a bad thing, because I just wear my heart on my sleeve, sometimes too much, I think. I wrote recently about, and I spoke recently a lot about people being judgmental about other fans and how often they go to games and how they behave as a fan. And that provoked such a strong response. And to me, a lot of it was positive, but the fanzine side of it, a few people wrote in with the other side of it and saying, like, kind of bashing me a little bit. So that was quite interesting, because you have to remember what you write goes out there and it sticks. So, you know, it's quite interesting and it's thought-provoking in a way. But the people who write for the fanzine are so talented. There's such a talented pool of writers who contribute all the time, like Burfield and Concannon and Petrie, Sean Riley. It's just a remarkable bunch, and they are top-notch fans as well.
I presume the other three of you have either read King of the Kippax or know King of the Kippax well. Yeah. Kevin, I mean, what does it stand for you? Is it an important? I mean, you're right at the centre of supporterdom. Is the King of the Kippax central to that as well?
Well, I think for me, just forgetting my supporters club role as a moment, I think my thing about Dave and King of the Kippax is it's almost part of your away game experience. You go to an away game and you almost feel as if, we're here now, you know, because you can see Dave stood there selling his King of the Kippax. And you either just say hello, Dave, or you stop and have a chat. And actually, there are the odd occasion where you think, I've not seen Dave today, you know, and that's why King of the Kippax and Dave is the norm, and it's part of the thing. And Dave skipped by part of one of the important things that he mentioned there as well, of course, is that Dave was voted onto the board for a period of time by the fans. And, you know, that point should never be overlooked, that the fans themselves had the opportunity when, in hindsight, you know, the club were probably not doing it for the right reasons, but Dave himself absolutely wanted to be there to represent the fans, to put the view of the supporters forward. And I can't remember how many candidates there were, 3 or 4, I think, at the time. But Dave won that by a majority, and that was great. You know, it's something that probably wouldn't ever happen again. Certainly won't happen at this club, because the way that...
Are you the nearest? I mean, as the General Secretary of the Supporters Club, I guess you're the nearest that there is to fan representation within the club, because presumably you have a regular dialogue with them and you speak on behalf of the fans a lot. So do you feel as if you're the...
I don't like to think I speak on behalf of the fans, because that gets you in trouble, I think. You know, you have to have your own personal view. And some people take that as a view of the supporters club. You know, we have over 20,000 fans around the world now, and I probably can't speak 94 of the languages of the branches that speak, so I can't speak on behalf of them. And there is a danger, though, sometimes that when you give an opinion, like today, or if you're on the television or the radio elsewhere, that fans think you're speaking on behalf of them. I always stress that I'm not. It's my own personal opinion that I give. But yeah, there is an element that, of course, that I do have to try and do what I think is the right thing for the members of the supporters club. But
do the club ever come to you and say, listen, you're closer to the fans than probably anybody else we know, what do you think we should do here, or what would you do there? Or
there are some times I think when the club come to me about something that maybe in the past the club have come to me, not speaking out of turn here, when there were things maybe that were going to hit the press, and the club have come and said, listen, XYZ from a particular newspaper is going to ring you tomorrow about this, so they give me a heads up. And listen, I've always tried to play the role that when I'm speaking on behalf of the supporters club in those occasions, I'll always try and defend the club as well. I'm more into jaw than war. You never get anything out of any football club if you're constantly criticising them. But the club, I think, are very good these days. I think the reality is we've got 20,000 members. We've got 230 branches worldwide. But in the whole scope of things, that's probably quite a small number these days. But the club are very good. The club are active in trying to help us spread the word of the supporters club around the world. They do come to us and they do ask us our view on things. But at one time they would, and I'm not critical of this, I'm actually in favour of this. At one time the club would probably just come and just ask the supporters club their opinion on things. And then they'd go out to the press and say, well, we've spoken to the fans, and the fans... They don't do that exclusively with us these days, and actually I'm quite in favour of that. We've got the supporters club, we've got the 1894 group, there are other groups at City View, and there are other, maybe 9320, I don't know whether the club have any dialogue, but the club are keener now to get the views of lots of different fans. They have these questionnaires that they send out, which sometimes are not targeted right particularly. But actually, I think the club are much better in getting a broader view. Sometimes when you ask too many people, of course, you will select the answers that you want as being representative of the fans. Maybe that's the danger. But just going back to Dave's point, that about being on the board, that will never happen again at this club, and you can understand the way that it's set up, but that should never be overlooked either. I know it was difficult for you at times as well.
Oh, very
it,
difficult. Yeah.
I know in the past, not speaking out to you, some of the things that were said to you across that.
Well, and it was a time, 94, 95, I think it was, and we never signed a player or sold a player, and then having been promised, well, not promised, but hinted at Franz Beckenbauer being our manager, we got Alan Ball, and that just about killed it, because I had a few... the club didn't consult with me on that, which I thought was a bit naughty, or they didn't guide me in the right way, and I said a few things about that appointment, and virtually that killed the fan on the board, because I was told that I was there to represent the board, and I told the chairman at the time, no, I was there to represent the fans. And the fans weren't very thrilled with that appointment. So that was the end of fan on the board, which was a shame.
Well, let's continue this discussion in a moment. We've obviously not even spoke to two of you yet, but we're going to broaden it out and talk about the club now a lot more. But first of all, we'll just take this quick break. Now, we've got Harlan here, who's the youngest member of this panel, and I'm assuming you're not in the supporters club, or you're not in any Facebook groups, or correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I am. I'm in a few Facebook groups. There's a Facebook Manchester City fans group that I was in. Well, I said that I was in, that I am in. I've been in that for about 2.5 years now. And a lot of the stuff that gets put in there, obviously there's some expletives used and stuff like that as well, and it's obviously not like yours where you can't swear. There's no real saying you can or you can't. People just do swear in there, and a lot of the opinions that get put in that group are quite hardcore, if that's the right word to use. They're quite hard-hitting. I wouldn't always say they're very well kind of considered before they post them. It's just kind of write and post. They mustn't look through what they put on there before they actually post it, and some of it can be misinterpreted or interpreted how it is written, and some of it's pretty wrong. And I never like to comment on there, because what you do is, I think when you comment on something that isn't tasteful, you somewhat put yourself out there for criticism, and then you get jumped on. And that's the same in a lot of the City groups, even the Premier League banter groups that I'm in and stuff like that. I only post stuff that I think is meaningful, factual, and valid opinions. I never post anything that will get a negative reaction from people because I already anticipate that may happen before I post it. But yeah, I'm in a few groups. Some of the groups I'm in, some fantastic people in there, Ian. Lots of fantastic opinions, diehard City fans, great views, and a lot of the stuff that gets put in them groups after matches and stuff. It's more analysis of the actual game, opinions of what maybe Pep could have done at certain times in the game. And that group, I've always been a passionate City fan anyway. I've always been a confident lad. But from being in them groups and conversing with them other fans, it's allowed me to kind of gain more confidence, and that's why I do what I do on your vlogs the way I do it. I kind of analyse the game as I'm watching it, and like I said to you when we spoke off air, I somewhat soak it all up like a sponge and then drain myself out after the game. So it's just, I'm not meaning to soak that up. I just get everything in my head, come out, and then I don't spiel it to you. I kind of organise it in my head and then tell you how I thought the game went.
Well, obviously, you're coming from a slightly different place, and no disrespect to everybody else, but you look at it from a youth perspective as well. You've got no agenda. Not that I've got any agenda either, or any of us have really, but you have no agenda. That I see a lot on social media of debate about the club's losing touch with its supporters, or yes, we love this and we think they're doing this really well. I see both sides of this debate. So let's start with you, but I want all of you to contribute to this, really. What do you think that everything's fine? I mean, we're not talking about on the field. Obviously, the team are doing brilliantly, going to win the league, possibly win the Champions League. It couldn't be better on the field, let's be honest. Yeah. But fans talk about players living in a bubble, millionaires, not being touchable, and that the club is losing touch with supporters. I don't know whether that's true or not, because I'm in a different world, and to a certain extent, perhaps Kevin is, because, you mingle with different people. Dave, obviously, has a very long existence with the club. Maybe Andy and Emily have a slightly different perspective, though Emily worked for the club for a while as well, which I know can slightly compromise what she can say tonight. But nevertheless, from a young person's point of view, do you think, no, this is absolutely fine, the relationship is fine, everything's great, or are there things that you would like to improve? Are there things you're proud of? Are there things you don't like? How do you see the relationship?
Basically, and obviously I am on Instagram, and that is the way that you can... I follow a lot of footballers on there, footballers from all clubs. Would it be fair to say I'm football obsessed? Even at 24, I'm absolutely obsessed with football. I'm not ashamed to say that on air or off air.
That is the time to be obsessed.
Well, that's it, at 24, yeah. Well,
I'm still 24 inside.
You still look 24.
Thank you.
I mean that. But yeah, no, I follow a lot of footballers. I follow Phil Foden, Brahim Diaz, two players that I mentioned on your vlogs, Bernardo Silva, basically every City player. I follow them on Instagram. And I think that what I want to say is that that's the closest we can get to the players nowadays. Instagram and players that are on Facebook, they're not really on Facebook. They're run by representatives. So Instagram is actually, Raheem Sterling pinching people's noses on an aeroplane. Where else would you see that? You couldn't be there on the plane with them. So it's great to see that on there. But you just kind of look at it and it's as if you want to kind of be there and experience it with them, and you never get that close anymore. City TV is fantastic. Because that obviously allows us to... An Inside City that's been going now for, I think it's near on 8 years now. You really get to see behind the scenes of the club. On tours, obviously you've been on a few yourself. I watch them in training every time that it's on. You wouldn't get that otherwise, because you wouldn't be allowed into training now. I mean, my girlfriend Jess, her auntie Janice, she used to be able to go and stand outside Platt Lane. She'd skip school. She'd go and walk outside Platt Lane. Her dad obviously wouldn't know that she was off school for the day, and she'd stand outside Platt Lane, watch the players train for an hour and a half, and then get autographs afterwards. And it is pretty upsetting that even in my lifetime, I've seen that the club has moved on, and rightfully so, and we're so glad about that. But I just feel as if I can now walk up to Sean Gota and shake his hand at a match and say, "Hiya, Sean," Now, back in 2002-03, when I watched City intensely, when I really started to grasp what football meant to me as a 9-year-old, 8-year-old boy, he was one of my heroes. Sean Gorter, Nicholas Anelka, Nicholas Jensen, Darren Huckabee was my favourite player just because he had blonde streaks and I had blonde streaks as a kid. But they were my heroes, and now I can shake hands with Sean whenever I want and say hello, and he's really polite, and I've seen him on your vlogs and everything else, and he's such a great guy. In 20 years' time, or in 10 years' time, I know for a fact I won't be able to go and shake Sergio Aguero's hand without close protection. And Sean doesn't have close protection because football has moved on, and because of idiotic fans, and there are still hooligans out there that zip the coats up and still come to games now. People that are City fans that will try and spoil something so wonderful, and that's why we can't get close to the players anymore. But in terms of where I feel the fans are with regards to the connection with the club, I do feel pretty distant from the club now, and I do feel as if we go to the games, and then once the game's over, that's where the connection kind of ends for us fans that haven't got stronger connections with the club. And the only way we can connect, or the only way we can voice our opinion now, and especially for me, is because of the platform that you've offered us with your new vlog. And without that, my opinions would be in my head and they wouldn't be on YouTube.
I mean, Cheeseman, this is Forever Blue on XS Manchester, which is 106.1 FM. We're here each and every Tuesday between 6 and 7. If you missed part of the show, or you know somebody who you think might want to listen to it who hasn't been able to listen to it, it will be downloadable as a podcast. I personally tweet out the link. XS Manchester do that as well. It'll be on my Forever Blue Ian Cheeseman Facebook page, and I share that around as well. So there is another way to listen to it, and you might hear points from some of the people in the room here tonight that you agree with or you disagree with. Feel free to join the debate. We have Andy from the 9320 group. We have Dave Wallace from King of the Kipp Acts. Emily, who's a writer in that, and also a podcast co-contributor like I am. Harlan, who's a 24-year-old City fan who contributes to my vlog that I do. And, of course, Kevin Parker from the official supporters club. Now, we've only got about 10 or 15 minutes to go here now, so I feel like I just need to let you loose because we've been talking about things off air. I don't want to talk, frankly. I just want to listen to what you've got to say. What are the things that you care about, that you've been telling me about, that you want to express?
We've just been having a little bit of a conversation about, and something that is on Twitter today, loyalty points, and the fact that the Liverpool away Champions League game, I think it sold out at 17,000 loyalty points, but fans have been online on third-party sites and they're posting screenshots that they can buy a ticket for the Liverpool away game in the City section for about £300, and you can put about 10 tickets in your basket. So if you've got the money, you can go. So we're kind of sat here, and Kevin's just made an excellent point that people may not be aware of.
What's your excellent point, Kevin?
Well, thanks for saying it's an excellent point. I think I agree that loyalty points actually can work against the younger supporter, like Harlan there. How's he ever going to get enough loyalty points to move up the system? Although the loyalty point system can work if the person who's applying for the ticket genuinely is the person who's going to use the ticket for the game. But we know, as City fans, that you can go and get a ticket for any game and then pass it on to your mate, and your mate can use the ticket for the game, and you've got the loyalty points, and he's been paid. What the supporter who's using the ticket doesn't really realise is that he's never going to get his loyalty points up the system. And going back to your point about, and I've seen that website as well today, which is very frustrating, where for the away game in the Champions League at Anfield, you can buy tickets on a ticketing site at £300 each. And I think the example shown was you could buy a multiple of 10. That's not really the club's fault. The disappointing thing from my view on that is that's a supporter's fault. A supporter or a group of supporters or a sponsor or a corporate, we don't know which, has managed to get access to tickets, and rather than use them, or even rather than even use them and pass them on at face value to a pal, they're trying to make money out of other City supporters.
Surely there must be a way, though, of the club actually tracking who is selling these. The club must know where these tickets are going.
The club can't track who's selling them, but I always advise, and we do get these comments coming through to us from overseas members, or even, sometimes you've bumped into people and they tell you at a game, I've spent 300 quid for my ticket. I always take a photograph of the ticket, and I pass that information back to the club. And that's the way that the club can find out who got access to those tickets.